Well, welcome everybody to our fourth podcast. Welcome to our home. For those of you who might not have seen the others, I'm Lindsay, and this is Dylan, one of our two miniature schnauzers.
I'm Jordan. Lindsay's my mum and my son. That's how it works.
It is. And today we're going to be talking about
physical health, failings and despair. I had a bit of a realisation the other day, and ever since then I've really wanted to talk about it on the podcast because it was something that kind of just blew my mind. You have these moments where you realise something and you're like, oh, actually, wow, that is so true. Mm-hmm. And this particular point, the point of physical health, I feel like a lot of Christians, that is a place that just kind of gets brushed over.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's hard to remember what we've mentioned in previous podcasts now. For those of you who are new, this is the first time we've ever done a podcast, and we found it can be quite difficult. So we're not exactly sure what we have said in previous podcasts because we've deleted quite a few or had to retake them.
That's true.
But we have mentioned it at some point that, like, the sin, I'm going to say sin in asterisks because I don't like that word. It's not super helpful unless you are a Christian. But like the sin of gluttony is the sin that often just gets completely overlooked. And I think health...
You don't normally hear a sermon about gluttony.
Yeah, exactly. And I think health just falls straight into that same bracket, which for someone who's really passionate about physical health, you know, I used to be a professional footballer, I've done online coaching, I've had my own fitness journey of many years, 7 or 8 years now. Mm-hmm. I think that is a massive shame because it's such an important tool, I think, to creating success in whatever you do. Yeah. And even seeing a more fruitful relationship with God.
And I think also...
I really believe that.
Discipline, you know, the disciplines of eating or exercise and all those things. Often people talk about spiritual disciplines and it's all about reading your Bible and praying and that sort of thing. But again, very rarely these other elements kind of discussed or mentioned that much. So that's really great that you've got a heart for something that is so important.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I want to kickstart it off by... go into the Bible. So actually first, if you are not a Christian, I would encourage that you are not put off by the fact I've mentioned the Christian and mentioned the Bible. One of the craziest things I found when I became a Christian, which was pretty much only about 18 months ago, was the wisdom that was in the Bible that was actually applicable. I'd read through it and be like, oh wow, this is actually quite a smart book, which was not what I believed it to be at all. So it completely blew my mind. And regardless of whether or not you believe in Jesus or God, whatever, the stories in there, the parables, and just the wisdom that's contained in there overall is really, really incredible. Really incredible. So I'd encourage you to stick around anyway. I'm going to try and translate most things, if you aren't a Christian, put it into like real life examples, so to say, not just spiritual Christian ones, so everyone can understand what I'm saying. Yeah. But I noticed when I was reading... Jesus, when he gets baptized, he goes into the desert for 40 days and he's led there by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil. Now, this is the only time in the Bible where Jesus is tempted by the devil. And we don't know if the devil's there tempting him every single day because all it says is that at the end of the 40 days, Jesus was tempted by the devil. The first thing the devil says to him is, if you are the Son of God. So he questions his identity. If you are the Son of God, turn this stone into bread and feed yourself. Yeah. And Jesus says that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word from the mouth of God. But I found that really, really interesting that the only time the devil comes to tempt Jesus in his life was when he was at his physically weakest point. Yes. And the man who never once gave in to temptation, you know, I think it's kind of telling that whether or not the devil knew, he would never give in to temptation. He tried only once during the point when he was physically weakest.
Physically weakest, yeah. Very tired, very hungry.
Yeah, very tired, very hungry, very stressed, and very isolated. He was alone, which I think is an important one that I haven't heard mentioned too much. The devil came to target him when he was alone. So he came when he was hungry, came when he was stressed, came when he was isolated, and he came when his body was physically weak. And so I think whether or not you believe in that story, that it is true that temptation comes in these moments. Temptation comes when you're isolated or alone. Temptation comes when you're hungry. Temptation comes when you're stressed. And temptation comes when you're physically weak.
Can you just clarify what you mean by Jesus being stressed? Because some people would.
So when you've gone through a period of 40 days with no food, your nervous system, your body would be in a place of stress. So stress itself is not actually a bad thing. Stress is designed to keep the body alive. You know, your fight or flight system, that is a stress response to being chased by a tiger or something.
Yeah.
So it's a very healthy, good thing that keeps us alive. Now, in today's day and age, we are chronically stressed from work all the time. We weren't meant to be in like that consistently stressed. But because Jesus would have had no food for 40 days, his body would have been very, very stressed. You know, I'm assuming he wasn't fat. And when if you don't have a lot of fat reserves, fat stores, when you go to fast, that actually your body starts to use the protein. So his internal organs would have actually been beginning to waste away, which is why humans don't go above longer than 40 days. He probably went right to the limit that a human could survive. So his body was physically stressed out.
That's helpful.
Extremely tired.
Yeah.
Whether or not Satan thought that he had a chance of tempting Jesus, the fact is that he came at his physically weakest. So what does that tell us? Now, you can change the name devil simply for temptation. And as I've just said, temptation comes for us at our weakest points. So most of you will have tried, I know that we've tried diets, and most people listening will have tried diets. And what is the point that we fail the easiest? It's when we're hungry. You can go a day, you can go 2 days, you can go 3 days, and if you're dieting wrong, your body will become very, very hungry. You know, if you just have some fruit for breakfast, a salad at lunch, when you get to the evening, you're going to be very hungry. And how much do you just want to put a pizza in the oven?
Yeah.
When you're starving, do you want to sit and cook for an hour? No, you don't. So you give in to the temptation of ease and comfort,
Absolutely.
which is exactly what the devil tried to do with Jesus when he said, just turn this stone into bread. It was the ease and comfort of, you are so hungry. It's the exact equivalent of us just putting a pizza in the oven. Just put that pizza in the oven. Just do it, just do it, just do it. And that's when you give in. It's the same as these people say, don't go shopping when you're hungry. Why not? Because you're going to buy all the things that you don't really want to buy.
And spend double the money.
Exactly. But that is a temptation. Now, you get to decide how much of a temptation that is. But the fact is, it is still a temptation. If you are on a diet, you have been tempted to eat some foods that you had planned not to eat. So in that moment, you have given in to temptation. And just like exercise, most of us will have tried and failed with exercise or a plan. Okay, I'm going to get fit now. And now where is the point that we fail? When you're full of energy, when you're feeling great, you're thinking, oh, maybe I'll go exercise. You don't go, nah, I'm just going to sit in front of the TV and not do anything. You don't go to exercise when you're feeling tired, when it's cold outside.
Yeah.
You wake up, if you've decided, okay, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning, and your alarm goes at 6, and usually you've been waking up at 7:30. That's the moment when you're tired, when you give in to temptation, okay? And now most of us have snapped at someone in our lives, and so when do we tend to snap at someone? Now, I can talk from experience and say that I get very, very hangry. Okay? Jessie knows this, my fiance knows this, mum and dad know it. Okay, when I am hungry, I can be a nightmare. When I'm hungry, again, I'm just going to highlight that. That is when the temptation to not be the best person that I can be. I'm not supposed to snap at my mum, I'm not supposed to snap at my fiance. That is not God's best, and that is not the best way to live my life. But it's so easy to give into
And
that temptation when you're hungry.
not with a Snickers or whatever the ad is.
Yeah, you're
doesn't help.
not yourself when you're hungry. The Snickers ad, yeah. But if I've had a full meal, if I've exercised that day, if I have gotten enough sleep and I've woke up fresh with energy, if I'm feeling positive, if I'm feeling thankful, am I going to be snapping at you and Jessie the same way? No. So when we're hungry, it's easy to give in to temptation. When we're tired, it's easy to give in to temptation. And when we're stressed from being hungry, or you've had a long day at work, you get home, you snap at the kids, you snap at your wife, you snap at your husband, you snap at people at work because your body is physically stressed, because you are mentally stressed. This is when the temptation or the devil comes and tempts you not to be the best person that you can be. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the tired one, I can see that. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Go
the
for it.
tired one is kind of easier to fix potentially, but maybe you can talk about that because you just need to maybe sleep more, go to bed early. I don't know if it's now or for a later one, but the being hungry one is a whole lot more complex and interesting to talk about how to not be hungry. That might not be for today, but
yeah, no, I actually think, and what I've noticed recently, we've been doing keto a bit recently, and when I cut out all carbs, after 3 or 4 days, I felt the best I've ever felt. My energy was incredibly consistent. I had no dips. I had no like blood sugar spikes and peaks. I was just super consistent all the time and felt amazing. And since introducing carbs back, because it's Christmas, we're eating nicer foods, I woke up this morning tired. I am more tired now. So yes, diet and hunger are very complicated, but I actually think that diet and sleep are also very heavily linked. When you're eating carbs, your blood sugar spikes and peaks, and when it's peaking, when it's at the bottom, you are not going to feel as good. You are irritable, you are fatigued, you are more tired, and that's when it's easier to give into all these things. However, this isn't, I don't want to get distracted, this isn't a health in terms of eat well, sleep well, drink well. We'll probably do that another time, because I'm really, really passionate on that and have been on a crazy journey in terms of diet and whatnot.
I definitely want to do a whole podcast on my journey of diet and exercise, because it's been a massive revelation. Yeah.
Today was more about the revelation that I had when I realised that when I wake up tired, I feel further away from God than when I wake up feeling fresh. And when I realised that, it just blew my mind. You know, you wake up tired and maybe you plan to read your Bible, maybe you plan to go for a walk, maybe it's not I plan to put a podcast on and go to the gym, but when I wake up tired, I don't want to do any of those things. I just want to wake up, I want to get a coffee, I want to sit on my sofa and to be honest, just want to scroll on social media because it's easy, it's convenient.
Yeah.
And
it's comforting when you're feeling tired.
It is super comforting. I want to eat pancakes, you know, when I wake up tired, I want to eat pancakes. And that's no surprise, again, going back to blood sugar spikes and peaks. My blood sugar is low. Most likely when I wake up feeling tired, I've got a headache, I'm fatigued, and I want something that's going to bring it up. Yeah. But when I realised this, I was like, oh, so my physical condition actually impacts my relationship with God for me. Now, maybe that is not the same for everyone. I know my brother feels quite consistently the same each day. Some people may just feel that way, but I can be very up and down physically. I need to look after my health. And I've no doubt that there are many others out there who are the same. They need to look after their health. And when you wake up feeling tired, you just create a mountain that you have to overcome just to do the right things, just to make you feel good. And forget a relationship with God if you're not a Christian. If you've set yourself stuff to do throughout the day, and you wake up tired, you have to overcome a mountain just to motivate yourself to do the right things. So maybe you've said, I want to go to the gym this morning. Maybe you wanted to wake up and get some deep work done, whatever it is. You wake up and you're tired. You then have to push through the tired just to go and do the things that are going to make you feel good.
Yes.
Whereas when I've been waking up feeling fresh, that stuff is easy. I wake up after 5 or 10 minutes, I'm awake, I'm alert. I've cuddled Jasper for 10 minutes, so that obviously helps a lot. Jasper's little baby down here. But when I wake up feeling fresh, you know, it's so easy to just, it's like my mind is, it's like a light switch just comes on and my mind is alert, I'm ready to go. I don't want to sit still because I'm full of energy.
Yeah.
And I believe that is how humans were meant to be. And living in that place where you have a lack of energy, as I've said, I believe it impacts your relationship with God, makes it so much harder to be successful. And creates a mountain that you have to overcome every single day just to do the things that are going to benefit you in any way, whether that's physically, emotionally, or spiritually.
Yeah, yeah.
So as a Christian, I then believe, coming to this and having this realization, that actually it is my responsibility to then look after myself physically. I should not put myself in a position where I'm waking up and feeling further away from God.
Right. So for you, that means what? Going to bed early?
To be honest, it means eating the right foods.
Okay.
And I want to make it clear that I can say this stuff. I still fail at it. You know, it's Christmas, so I'm going to feel more tired over Christmas.
Yeah.
Because I'm not just going to eat lentils, beans and legumes and cut out all carbs, everything over Christmas. So I know that over the Christmas period, there's going to be more challenges. But in just regular day-to-day life, I know that I need to take care of myself physically. Now, for each person, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. What works for me will not work for someone else because genetically we are different. And again, we can cover that in another episode. But that is my own personal conviction that actually I need to take more priority in looking after myself physically, as I don't want to feel far from God.
Yeah.
But I will just say that doesn't mean walking around with a six-pack. To me, that means waking up with energy each day. That is the most important thing. If I'm 12, 14% body fat, but I wake up positive, with energy, feeling close to God, ready to start the day, then that for me is way better than waking up with a six-pack and feeling tired because I'm in a severe calorie deficit. So
Sure.
waking up feeling good is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, actually, I need to look after myself physically. I need to be healthy. That is the difference.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to add? Any thoughts you've had? Sorry, I'm just sipping my tea.
That's all right. No, sip away. Well,
I've gone on a long monologue there, and
No,
that tea has
no.
been staring me in the face. So I've been waiting for you to interject, thinking, but you're not. So I'm forcing you to come in.
well, sometimes you just need to get things off your, speak your heart, don't you, love? Even if it is a bit more of a monologue, that's fine.
Sometimes it comes.
Yeah, no, go for
And
it.
I hope that if there are Christians listening to this, that this isn't meant to be a condemnation or like, go look after yourself physically. It was actually a realization for me, which I haven't heard Christians talk about.
Yeah.
So I want to put out there.
I know it sounds obvious in a way in terms of, well, it's not good to wake up tired, but so many people in the world wake up tired every day. They're tired from looking after their kids, they're tired from their job, they're tired from going out late, and sometimes, getting some more hours sleep isn't possible, or even if they do, it still doesn't work. So you're linking it, the importance of, it's an old phrase, isn't it? You are what you eat, but it's
Diet
true.
is in
It's
health.
true.
Diet is the most important thing. Absolutely is the most important thing. And we will go into that one day.
Yeah.
But diet affects everything. 7.5 hours sleep with a terrible diet, for me anyway, I won't speak for everyone, is worse for me than 6 hours sleep with a impeccable, spotless diet. I will feel better on 6 hours sleep
Yeah,
with a
I
brilliant
agree.
diet than 7.5 hours, 8 hours on a diet that's not that good.
I agree, because I've in the past I've had long hours of sleep, also sleeping in years gone by. But again, it's taken me years to find the right sorts of diet that works for my body. But I've actually been amazed how I always needed 8 hours sleep, always, or I'd feel tired. But now I can have 7. If I'm eating well, I still wake up like in the morning like,
You wake up
I'm
alert.
awake, even if I have gone to bed late sometimes, because of my body has energy, and it's a great feeling.
I bring Jasper into your room.
You
And,
do.
almost every day I'm hit with, John, I've had a thought about the podcast. I've been laying here awake for 20 minutes. What do you think about this, the podcast?
That is true.
I come in, I'm like, here we go again.
Yeah.
What's the thought she's had today?
Full of beans in the morning, yeah.
Yeah,
If I'm
but-
eating well.
Even if you're not a Christian, with whatever you are doing, if you don't feel physically good, I can guarantee that if you do feel physically better, whatever you're doing in that moment, you will start to do it better. You will achieve more. You will be successful. And you said so many people wake up tired every day. I think I have such a heart for this because I think people have just resigned to...
Resigned to,
So
yeah.
I always get that
It's
wrong,
all right,
don't
don't
I?
worry,
Yeah, I
it's
always
all
get
right.
it wrong. People have resigned themselves to being tired. And it kind of breaks my heart because it's not how the human
You don't
body was
have to
designed to
live
be.
that way.
Okay? Yeah, quite mad at the government and the powers that be that have allowed all these horrendous foods into our school systems, normal systems, on the supermarket shelves. They are so bad for you.
Things packed with sugar, but you
Packed
think
with
that they're
sugar.
good because you see it's got vitamin A, B, C, D, whatever in
Packed
it.
with the refined
But
carbs.
it's rubbish for you.
It's
yeah,
awful.
terrible way to start the day. Not going to help you at all or keep you full.
Even in Spain, so many of the food brands have this Nutri-Score thing. It's like a universal
Oh,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And I was looking at this pizza, which had a Nutri-Score. It was the tuna one, I think. It was tuna and something, tuna and red onion, and it had a Nutri-Score of B.
B.
And I just thought that is a lie.
It's misleading.
People will look at that and think, out
That's
of
all right then,
out
that's
of
healthy.
5, that's 4 stars. That's healthy. A pizza that's made the conventional way can never be 4 stars of health. And I love pizza. Pizza is my favourite food.
It
If I
is.
can have a birthday or anything, I'm having pizza. On keto, I had to find a way to make keto pizza because I love pizza. But in no possibility could I ever say pizza is 4 out of 5 on the health scale. It's such a shame. So again, this isn't you're picking the wrong foods. It's like, no, you've been led to believe and allowed by the government, the people that you trust to look after you, that these foods are okay when the majority of them
they're processed and they're not. Yeah.
So just a quick thing, if you are wondering and you don't want to wait until the health episode, well, how can I eat better? It's whole foods. That is the easiest way to do it. If you eat whole foods, you're on the right track. There'll be certain foods that may not agree with you personally, and we will get into that more, but if you just eat whole foods.
Can you explain what you mean by whole foods? Because people might not even know what that means.
So a whole food is a whole ingredient. Okay, so if you get I say asparagus, it sounds so boring, but you have your steak, you have your chicken, your eggs, okay? Stuff like pasta is not whole food, it's processed. If you want to eat pasta, I'd recommend you buy all the individual ingredients and make it yourself. Now, that is more work, and of course, people are going to eat pasta. I'm not saying never eat this stuff.
Or eat a high fibre one at least.
So we have red lentil pasta, me and Jessie, and we love it. It's really tasty, it's high fibre and it's high protein. It's so much better for you and your blood sugar. It's still processed, so is it like the best thing? No, but we like pasta, but we don't want to eat pasta, so it's better. But if 80% of your diet can be whole foods, so food that comes straight from the earth or straight from an animal, stuff that you're just cooking with whole ingredients, you're on the right tracks there. You have solid foundations to be healthy. The final thing that I realised was this phrase came to mind, and it's just been repeating over and over again, that the disciplined mind does not agree with despair. And I saw a video of a pastor teaching once, and he said that he believes the devil doesn't really care if you fall into any temptation once. So if you are, again, speaking more to the Christians here, using the word sin, but if you fall into the temptation of a particular sin, okay, all of us Christians on our journey will have that one sin. You know, I think if I say, think of that one sin that you repeatedly fall into. As men, we probably know what that is. Women may be the same. I'm not discrediting women, but we all have that sin that we have particularly struggled with. And when we give in to that temptation, how bad do we feel? Now, this pastor on the video said that the devil doesn't care if you fall into this particular temptation every time, because as Christians, you can always ask for forgiveness. Jesus will always forgive because he's already forgiven. If you are a Christian, if you've accepted Jesus, when he died on the cross, he died for every single sin, past, present, and future. So every sin that you have done has already been accounted for. You are white as snow in his eyes. You are righteous. Your account has been cleaned. So the devil knows this. He doesn't want you to know this. So when you fall into this temptation, he doesn't care. But what he really wants is for you to fall into despair, because it is despair that keeps you feeling separated from God. And I know this firsthand. You've seen this in my life because I've been very honest with you, struggling with the same thing over and over again, which, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I think it was the first one, when I was younger, I was sexually abused by 7 or 8 years old. So at 9 years old, I'm just going to be painfully honest, I'd already discovered masturbation. Now, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know anything about the Bible, Christians. I'd never heard a Christian talk about masturbation and the various views. But I distinctly remember, after the act, I just felt guilty and terrible. And I was like, oh, that's disgusting. What have I done? Now, I know a lot of men have that, a lot of Christian men have that added guilt piled up and that shame because of the way that the church talks about these things or doesn't talk about these things, which I'm not going to get into right now. It's not great. But I also know there's many non-Christian men that will do this, that will watch porn, that will just be completely addicted and still feel incredible and immense shame over this one thing. It is not just specific to Christian men. And so I've struggled with this loads. Growing up in a Christian household where we didn't discuss that specifically too much, but sex before marriage was...
I discussed that with your brother, but I don't think you were in a place to talk about it at the time.
But that's because of what happened when I was younger. That's what I'm trying to say. Through the sexual abuse, there were added feelings of guilt and shame.
Absolutely.
And I've just lost my trail of thought.
Sorry, that's I interrupted you there, and I've thrown you off.
What was I saying before?
Oh gosh.
It's all right, I'll just sip my tea. We'll take a quick
And
break,
there's
guys.
me-
It's been pretty heavy, so just take a breather.
There's me with my mid-50s brain, which doesn't always recall all the
No,
details.
so I was
like
talking
it
about
used to.
even up until coming out to Spain, I had struggled with this.
Yeah.
You know, masturbation and stuff had been difficult,
Mm-hmm.
extra difficult because of what I went through as a kid and how I was opened up to that world super, super early.
Yeah.
So this has been a fight that I have struggled with for 16 years now.
You were talking about what the devil wants
He
you
wants
to
you
know
to
and
fall
not,
into
he wants you to fall into despair over it.
Yeah.
Despair,
And so
condemnation.
when we came
Yeah.
out to Spain in July, I was in a place of complete despair because I was just like, how could God ever love me? Or how could he continue to love me when
You keep.
he has forgiven me for this and I don't want to do this, but I do it anyway. And each time you go through it, you finish it and you're like, why have I just done that? Like, I'm disgusting, I'm broken, I'm dirty. And then, you know, there's the typical saying, do you get cleaned up before you go in the shower? No. You're dirty when you step into the shower and then the shower cleans you. It's like that with God, but it's just so difficult to make that transition that actually you fall into despair and you think, no, I'll just take some time from God. I don't deserve to be close to God. You know, I don't even want to pray to God because he's angry with me or I'm disgusting. You create all these imaginary feelings in your head, which I just want to say right now are not true.
Completely untrue.
Complete lies from
Absolutely.
the enemy because the devil wants you to fall into despair.
Despair.
And despair is what keeps you separated from God, not the act of falling into temptation.
Yeah.
But the disciplined mind does not agree with despair. And so the example I'm going to use is a diet. So let's say you start a diet and you already have a disciplined mind. You've been disciplined in other areas of life, so it's easy for you to apply discipline to any new area that you walk.
That is
Because
very true.
when you are disciplined in one area of life, it always spills over into others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's say you are starting a new diet. You have a great week. You've weighed yourself, you've lost weight. It comes to the weekend, a friend says, oh, let's go out for a drink. You go out, you drink too much, you get takeaway the next day, and suddenly you feel like Saturday and Sunday has been ruined. A mind that is not disciplined in that moment, it's very easy to fall into despair. You wake up on Monday, you're tired, you're still part hungover, don't want to go back to exercise, you don't want to go back to eating well, so you just give in to despair, and that is what leads to failing.
You
It is-
think, I've blown it. I remember
Exactly.
in the past thinking, I've blown it now, so what's it matter? I may as well just give up this week or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
the failing that leads, it's the despair that leads to failing. But the disciplined mind, one that is practiced in discipline, says no. It gets to Monday, okay, and maybe the weekend hasn't been great, but to recognise that actually, no, that was just a mistake, and I can just get right back on the wagon
Yeah.
from where I left off. That is the
Absolutely.
difference between a disciplined mind and a non-disciplined mind, and you can apply that to almost any area of life. Likewise, for Christians, you fall into that one temptation. How easy is it to fall into despair? And how difficult is it actually to run back to God in that moment when you feel as bad as you do? You do not want to go and start worshipping God. You don't want to go into prayer.
And that's actually a whole nother topic, isn't it? About the grace of God, the undeserved
Yeah.
grace of God. Where
And it'd be great to talk about grace one day.
yeah.
But I actually had, again, recently a massive revelation on this. I was doing a fast a couple of weeks ago, or about 10 days ago. And fasting is very, very difficult. I was doing a complete water fast, no food. And previously I'd only managed to go 4 days. So I toyed with it for a while. I felt like God was calling me into a fast, but I just didn't have that strong conviction. And I knew that if I did not have a strong why, I would fail.
Yeah.
If you don't have a strong why not to eat, you're going to eat. It's not
Yeah.
like you can just not eat. It is a driving factor, which again is why I really, really, I'm going to say respect, but appreciate how Jesus went 40 days without food whilst being tempted. It kind of puts him on this pedestal when you go through it and realise, I don't think
Wow.
I could ever do that. You
Yeah.
know, he was incredible to be able to do that.
And people say, oh, well, he was God, he could do anything. But that's not true, is it? Because Jesus chose to limit himself to
He
his
limited himself, so he
humanity
was completely human.
with his relationship with God and how he could access that in the same way that we can. So he,
And that was shown
limited
right before
himself.
he died. He actually asked God to take away the death that he knew he was about to go
Yeah.
through. He said, Father, if you will take this
Please
cup
spare me this
from me.
if you possibly can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if he was fully God, he could have removed his pain receptors.
Or he was
and just
fully
gone
God, but
through it.
using his fully godness.
If he used his full godly power,
Yeah.
he could have just gone through that with no pain and faked it, and no one would have known. But to include a detail quite like that is remarkable. But I was fasting, and I said to Mum before, I was like, okay, I'm not putting pressure on myself this time. I'm going to fast without food for as long as I can, but I don't want to feel like I have failed if I give in. So if I give in, I'm going to go plant-based only, kind of like a Daniel fast.
Yep.
So it gets to day 4 and I was starving and I went and ate. And despite saying that, I felt awful. I felt myself go into this place of despair again.
And
I felt
you only ate you only ate plant.
Yeah, it was still
stuff.
plant-based stuff,
Yeah.
but I just felt terrible. I was like, God, I have failed you. You know I wanted to go 6 days, but I was too weak. I couldn't. And then I said to Jessie on the phone, I was texting her, I said, I felt terrible all day. This was day 5. It's like, I have felt awful all day. I'm so disappointed. I've let God down. I don't even want to pray. And as soon as I said that, I don't even want to pray, it was just like a light bulb moment. And I was like, they've got me. This was exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to fall into despair. I was despairing that I had failed the fast. And by falling into despair, I no longer wanted to pray. And that's probably the single biggest goal of the enemy. I'll put it out there. They do not want you to pray or be in the presence of God. Because when you're in the presence of God, that's when the change happens. Yeah. So if they can keep you from that because you're in a place of despair, they're winning.
Yep.
So as soon as that hit me, I was like, okay, I need to put a stop to this. I went out walking, I went on a prayer walk, and that was one of the most powerful prayer walks I've ever had in my life. I'm not going to get into that now, but I will do it eventually.
You must.
I must.
It was
incredible.
incredible.
Because
that whole week, actually.
That was ridiculous.
That whole week of fasting, just to put it out there for future, the breakthroughs that happened in that week were crazy. 2 or 3 really huge ones. So we'll definitely tell that story one day.
Yeah, we'll tell that story one day. It was really, really cool. You want to talk about God's miracles and people believing that God doesn't exist. So it's like, okay, when we tell this story, explain to me how that's not God. Yeah. Please, I want to hear.
It was right towards the end as well, wasn't it? When you were like...
It's right towards the end when I thought nothing's going to happen with this fast. And it had come right after, it was right after this moment where I'd fallen into despair. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I realised, and I'm not going to pretend I have the most disciplined mind, I'm on a journey, but the discipline that I have been able to develop said, no, I am putting a stop to this. I'm not going to let my entire fast be ruined because I have fallen into despair. Mm-hmm. So I put into practice discipline and I went out and did the thing that I didn't want to do anyway. And the rewards that I got was one of the biggest rewards ever. It was incredible. And that is the disciplined mind in action. The disciplined mind does not agree with despair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or condemnation, I think, is the classic phrase used in Christian circles. Mm-hmm. But I think people outside of Christian circles, despair is a really good one, because that's what you can often feel when you're trying and you keep failing. That's what you feel, isn't it? Like there's no hope, can't change this. And it's a lie, because by God's grace we can, or by our own discipline we can. Yeah. Yeah.
And just some interesting Bible verses that I looked at. So again, this is 1 Timothy 4:8. And this is the New Living Translation, which I think for the majority of people listening is the easiest to understand because it doesn't have technical Bible language. It says, physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and the life to come. The NIT, the New International Version, says...
NIV, yeah.
No, NIT, New International Translation.
Oh, right, gotcha.
Sorry.
It's okay.
For physical training is of some value, and the English Standard Version, for while bodily training is of some value. Now, I think the majority of Christians look to the next part of the verse and go, but training for godliness is much better, and have ignored the first part that says the physical training is of some or is good, is of some value or is good. It is still good.
Absolutely.
Ignoring that is like ignoring the way that God designed you to work. He designed you to be full of energy, to have a healthy body. That is what he wants for you. God, I don't think, could ever say, no, I designed you to be unhealthy. I designed you to be tired. He does not want that. And here, Timothy is saying, is Timothy in it? In Timothy? Not Paul?
Which one's this?
It's 1 Timothy 4:8. I'm assuming Timothy.
Oh, that's Paul to Timothy.
Paul to Timothy. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So physical training is good. For physical training is of some value. I really think it's important to focus on that and to choose to focus on the fact that that can be a benefit. I feel like what Paul is really saying here is that physical training without the godly discipline is pointless, because then your body is physically strong, but when you die, then what? Your body will die one day, your spirit does not. But just going for the godly training is not the best way to be. So don't ignore it.
Abundant life is both, isn't it? Spirit, soul, mind, body, all of the well-being of all of that.
Use everything you have at your disposal to be the best person that you can be, because that is a biblical principle.
Absolutely.
You can't deny that. And then 1 Corinthians 9:25-27, the New Living Translation again. All athletes are disciplined in their training. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I live with purpose in every step. So I live with purpose in every step. But I love that. All athletes are disciplined in their training. So what Paul is saying here is that if you are an athlete, you will be disciplined.
Yep.
So if you are struggling to implement discipline into your life, what is the easiest way to do it? I believe it's through physical training, because it's practical. It's something you can do with your hands. It takes time to create a disciplined mind. And a disciplined mind, I feel, is often created through disciplined physical practices.
Yes.
That is the easiest way to do it.
Because it all links.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
When you force yourself to wake up at 6 o'clock and it's cold, and you do that 3 or 4 times a week, and you do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and the temptation to eat a pizza when you're hungry comes along, you have practiced how to implement discipline, how to get up and do things when your body doesn't want to. So you're hungry and you forgot to meal prep, or you had to stay behind at work late, whatever, you get home and there's an old pizza in the freezer. Do I do it? Do I put it in? Or do I cook the food that I know may not taste as well may not taste as good right now, but will nourish my body in the long term? And that isn't just about food.
Yeah. Are you going to say anything about the isolation aspects or the community side of this at all?
Yeah, so I mentioned isolation at the beginning. I was actually the final bit I was going to talk was
right, sorry.
No, it's all right. How do we become disciplined? How do we actually implement this into our life? Well, number one is practice, like I just said. You can pick something small, but I would recommend making it a physical act. So one of the times that I was actually able to create the most consistency in my life was waking up at 7:30, and the first thing that I did was go read 10 minutes of the Bible, go for a 10-minute walk, and then read 10 minutes of a educational book. And then journal for 10 minutes. So that took 40 minutes, wasn't physical activity. But it's actually harder for me to do something like that than to go to the gym. I enjoy going to the gym, but I decided, no, this is what I want to commit to. And if I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And just not letting myself off, basically. I just committed to doing that every single day. And that was practicing discipline, because it was doing something that I didn't really want to do. But I did it. And you can do that with anything. Any type of practice that you can do with your hands, where you can implement discipline and do repeatedly. Pick one thing and commit to it for 4 weeks. I'm going to read a book for 10 minutes when I wake up. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to read a book for 10 minutes before I go to bed, even if I don't want to. One thing, and then build up from there. 2, don't rely on willpower. Human willpower is pretty terrible. I'm going to be honest, for the majority of people. Some people do it well, but again, I would guess that they've had a lot of practice.
I think all the New Year, January resolutions are a testament to that, because they don't normally last more than a couple of weeks, do they?
Yep. You are a product of your environment, and if your environment is filled with temptation, you are probably going to give in to that at one point or another. So don't rely on your willpower to make good decisions, because when you are feeling weak, you will not make the right ones.
Very true.
Number 3 is create an environment where it's easy to practice discipline. So that is very similar, but what I mean by this one is actually removing the decisions each day that you have to make. So again, if your environment around you has a lot of temptations, you'll probably give in to them. But if you get to a point in your day, in your life, in time, where you are forced to make a decision that you could have made before, again, you are increasing the chance that you will make the wrong one. So the easiest example for this is diet and meal prepping. So it gets to Sunday night. Instead of waiting until, and it gets to Sunday night, and you could meal prep for Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. You could make 3 lunches and 3 dinners.
Batch cooking, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting till Monday lunchtime at work when you're hungry and your options are limited, make the food then. Make the decision for yourself before you get to that point.
Yeah, I think that's really important. What's your phrase about preparing to fail? Planning.
Yeah. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Right.
And it is so true. If you do not prepare accordingly, you are just preparing yourself to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So plan. You cannot plan too much.
Yeah.
The times where I've been most successful, I've actually planned stuff to the minute. It's not obsessive, it's smart. The next thing, I would plan your week out. If you have work 9 to 5 or whatever your work is, plan when you want to do the things that you want to do. Even if that is, okay, I'm putting in my calendar that I'm waking up at 7:15 to read. I'm waking up 15 minutes early to read this book, to read the Bible, to go for a walk, to write down the things that I'm thankful for before I would usually wake up at 7:30. I'm putting that in and I'm setting the alarm.
Mm-hmm.
So then when it gets to 7:15, you're not making the decision, oh, I could get up. No, it's already there. You have already made a commitment to it, which I feel makes people so much less likely to stray. Likewise, you want to go to the gym. Look in your week. When do I have time to go to the gym? Tuesday and Thursday, I'm not doing anything in the evening. I finish work at 4. Okay, I'm going straight to the gym at 4:30. That way, when it gets to 4 o'clock on Tuesday, after you've done your work, instead of thinking, oh, do I go to the gym? I'm feeling quite tired, so I'm not going to. You don't make the decision when you're tired. You make the decision when you're feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you get to that point, you're not asking yourself, oh, should I go to the gym? You're asking yourself, what's the quickest way to get to the gym? You've already committed, so you're less likely to back out.
Yeah. And I think also I'd add, if you can do it with other people, so
That's
much the
point
better.
4.
All right, sorry, I thought you had 3 points.
No,
Go for it.
Point 4 is community and doing it with someone else.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it can be really difficult when you're trying to do everything yourself. And I feel like this is a big lie from social media, and that the world tells you, you know, you should be doing everything. Meal prep, go to the gym, clean your house, get your work done, socialise. It's like you have to do everything by yourself. It's so difficult. I'm so excited to be living with Jessie because we can create a plan, share out the responsibilities, right? Who's cooking for these 3 days? Who's cooking for the next 3 days? And like diet, that takes away so much of
The stress.
yeah, when it comes to health, you know, if your food is taken care of, it makes life so much easier.
It sure does.
So being able to do it with someone else, ideally, if you can, that can help you actually achieve it. Get a friend that you want to go to the gym with, get a friend that you want to run with, get a friend that you want to start a new sport with.
Mm-hmm.
Do it with them because you're less likely to back out of something if you are going with someone else.
Yep.
And failing that, try to set up a support friend, a support community, someone who already is into this stuff, who can help support you, who can help motivate you, who you can be accountable to. Any way that you can basically somehow get someone else involved and not do it alone, it means that when the temptation comes, instead of facing it alone and thinking, oh, I could just give in, you know that you have the support of someone that you could go to or a group that you could go to.
Yeah, I remember, even though it's quite a funny name, Chubby Tracker, that we set up once during a certain period of time when I wanted to lose a certain amount of weight and be exercising and dieting. And I held myself accountable to a group, a friend and family. And I think most people didn't even respond or say much in the group. It was me doing most of the posting.
Yeah, but it helped
still
you just
helps
posting.
every week, just saying, I've lost this much, I managed this much exercise or not, because you're accountable, and that accountability works. It's motivational, isn't it? Just knowing that you have to report to someone else, or someone else is going to ask you how you're doing. Really important principle. And Slimming World know that.
Yeah.
They know when you get on those scales every week and you've got a group of people watching, you are much more likely to do well in the week.
And I've posted a lot of health and fitness content to social media over the years. And I don't know why people may think that is, but the honest truth of posting that was actually because it was the most enjoyable and easiest way to be accountable. You know, I didn't want to look like an idiot in front of
I remember you saying that to
thousands of people that I'm posting to. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, if I commit to this, I'm not just going to back out and stop posting
Yeah.
because maybe no one would care or think. But in my head, I was like, nah,
Yeah.
if I put that out there, I'm seeing it through to completion. And that was actually a way of being accountable when I had no individual person to be accountable to.
Yes.
So you can create accountability in a variety of ways.
You can.
You just need to do it in a way that works for you.
Yeah, it's the principle that works,
Yeah.
isn't it? Definitely.
So highlights of the day. Jesus was only tempted when he was fasting. The only time the devil came to tempt him is when he was fasting or at his physical weakest point. Physically weakest. He was at his physically weakest point. Point 2, people may not agree with this one personally, but I feel furthest from God when I don't feel my best physically. So being physically well, and that's waking up with energy, not having a six-pack, allows me to feel closer to God. And I think for many others out there would also do the same. And then point 3, probably the most important, the disciplined mind does not agree with despair. Put an emphasis on a focus on discipline so that when despair comes knocking at the door, you're armed with discipline and you can say, not today, not today. I'm not giving into that today.
And I'd just also say for me that a huge thing with that is ahead of any period of time where you're planning greater discipline in your life in whatever area, but particularly like with diet and exercise, or for me, you know, with a change in diet, being more careful, I always have a huge, it's crazy because the amount of times I've done it, I still have a huge, oh no, it's going to be so hard and I'm going to feel so hungry, and I'm like psyching myself up for the week before, oh, I'm not going to be able to eat this food next week, oh, poor me. And then for me, I mean, I'm even more fortunate than you are. When I do it, when I actually do it, literally within a day, I feel great and it feels so easy and I don't feel hungry, and I'm like, why don't you do this like all the time?
It's like pre-despair.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's like pre-despair.
Yeah, but it's also a lie. It builds up in your mind ahead of the time that it's going to be so difficult and so hard, and it's not. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a huge mountain in your mind that you have to overcome, when really it's just a small hill.
It's actually a tiny little hill.
It's just a small hill. It just looks much bigger than it is.
Absolutely. Especially when I'm not saying if you haven't got the knowledge or the education, sure, you can try things which actually won't work. Then you'll fail. Then it'll be really hard, which is what happened to me for like 20 years. But once you're armed with the knowledge, which will be partly what you've said today, and also future podcasts, you really can do it, and it's not as hard as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it has been easier for me because I've had you as well.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
Supporting me. So he's a good lad.
Thank you. You flatter me. So I feel like that is everything for today. Thank you for
Thanks for listening.
Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone that you feel might benefit, friends, family.
Indeed.
You can follow us on Instagram at Our Home Podcast, and our email is contact@ourhomepodcast.com if you have any questions.
And do you want to say about the Facebook group?
Yes.
Exciting
exciting.
news.
Yeah,
Exciting
we have created a Facebook community because at the heart of everything that we do is actually to serve. And we'll touch on that another time, exactly what that means, because you can just hear to serve, but what does that mean to us? It's so much deeper than just serving. So we have created a Facebook community where we really want to connect and catch up with you guys.
Have more of a two-way conversation if people want it.
Yeah, the whole point of this podcast is to welcome people into our home online, and hopefully one day in person. We have exciting plans for that. We don't know when they'll come, but we have exciting plans for that, where we'd love to welcome people into our home physically. But for now, we want to do it online as much as we can. So we have created a Facebook community group.
Yep. Called Our Home.
It's Our Home Community. Again, because it's so small, I don't even know if it will come up on searches. We will have to invite people. So if you see this, message us on Instagram, message us on TikTok, send us an email if that is something that you want to be a part of, then
we can invite you to
free
it
to
if
join.
it doesn't come up in the search.
To be fair, we might be able to set up an email link, like a MailChimp link,
right,
where people can sign up, and the first email they will get is an invite to the Facebook community with a link. So that'll be nice and easy. So we'll set something like that up. But yeah, we actually want to get to know you guys. We want to serve. I really want to pray as well. I think prayer is really, really powerful. And yeah, I want to connect with people that listen. I want to know the struggles that people are going through and try and really support them
Yeah, and we've
through
all,
that to the best of my ability. Yeah.
yeah, and particularly because we've all had periods of time where, for whatever reason, we're not involved in a local church, or we would never go to one, or we've, you know, become disillusioned or disappointed or whatever. And there have been various times in our lives where we've looked for communities of people where there's room to discuss and disagree, and you know, and just have that space, that safe space to do that. And so we really want to connect with people who may be in that place and just be there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people who feel like they don't have a home.
Yeah.
It could be
People who
physical,
may
it
not
could be
have
spiritual.
a spiritual home right now.
You might have had a bad family experience, you know, and you hear people say, oh, we're a family, but we actually do want to be family for people that don't have family.
Yeah.
And that, I want to make it very clear, that is not just to Christians. Christians are welcome, but we really, really, really love everyone. No matter what you believe, no matter where you've come from. To be honest, I couldn't really care less what you believe. And that may sound, I hope it doesn't sound harsh, but your beliefs...
It's not the most important thing.
No, the beliefs that you carry to bed every night do not affect me and when I go to bed each night. But I do think it's really, really
Community
important.
and connection for everyone is
love
really important, though.
Everyone, to love others as God has loved us.
Yeah.
And if God doesn't judge, how could I judge?
Mm-hmm.
And Christians shouldn't be judging. So once again, if you have been judged by Christians, I'm sorry. But we are not that. I'll make it very clear, we are not that. And the community group will not be that. We won't tolerate that. We won't allow it from ourselves or from other Christians in the group.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool.
So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for reminding me.
No problem.
And we shall see you next week.
See you
Hope
next
you all have a great
time.
week.